This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
I'm Bob Joseph. This is Binghamton Now for Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. Live and local. We look forward to speaking with you. If you'd like to chat, call right now, 607-772-1290. WNBF. And we're off and running for the midweek edition of Binghamton Now. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? Something will be happening today. When it does, we will report on it, and we will also discuss. That's the point of our program. Let's go directly to the phones. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
My name is John, and I live in the Binghamton area.
All right. Thank you. And that's in upstate New York?
Upstate New York, in the southern tier, Susquehanna country, whatever you want to call it.
Is it near Endicott?
Yeah, I love that. I was up there the other day, at the meeting. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with Endicott, New York. They call it the birthplace of the IBM company.
Well, it hasn't been killed yet, but they're working on it.
That's what I've heard. Anyway, John, what's on your mind this morning?
I'm intrigued by the Republican Party chairman, the Broome County one, and his enthusiasm about an inconsequential election for one last seat at Binghamton City Council, and his ignoring of the fact that he is, and the party has failed to run a candidate for Broome County executive for the first time in history. They're leaving this important office, the biggest office in Broome County, unchallenged. So, was there ever an official explanation for that?
Well, they didn't put out a formal statement. I know when we have spoken with Benji Fetterman earlier this year, I think it was several weeks ago when he was here in the studio, I brought that up, and I don't recall the specific explanation. It seemed to be that perhaps there just wasn't an appropriate candidate or a person who really expressed a strong interest in challenging the Democratic incumbent, Jason Garner. That's my recollection, but I would have to go back to the tape of the program.
Well, the last I heard of it was a Channel 34 news story in which he said that there was plenty of time for a county executive. Now, we know that Rich David was polling as late as January. So apparently, to me, they were waiting for Rich David, and when that didn't occur, they decided to, and Akshar and Battisti got big raises from Garner, they decided not to challenge him. And Garner has not come out, to my knowledge, for Josh Riley. But this is, you can't have a serious major party without a full slate of candidates. And when you, for the first time in history, what you're saying is that the county executive seat is not important. What you do, if you can't find candidates, you have people stand for public office who don't either have the money, but take that position, take that ballot position. But they don't want, what they don't want is anybody that they can't control in there. And and this is the preface to my point. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to have a political party in New York, We the People. And if that party gets 110,000 votes, I think it is, that will be a new line that could be utilized in local and state elections for the next few years. So,
do you think it's likely that it will will surpass that threshold, the 110,000 vote threshold?
It is been done. I mean, it's been done by the threshold is different now. But
that's right. I mean, the New York lawmakers, in their infinite wisdom, raised the bar to make it more difficult for other parties to attain ballot access.
But in the 1984 election, I think Reagan got like 130,000, 120,000 votes on the Right to Life party. But what I'm getting at is this. Us Trump supporters and us disgruntled Republicans may have to vote for RFK Jr. Just to give us another ballot line to challenge these uniparty people that are controlling the local politics around here. I think it would be a vote well spent. I used to tell Howie Hawkins with the Green Party, because when they got their success, and keep in mind that it was Grandpa Munster, Al Lewis, the actor, that had enough name recognition, enough face recognition, if you will, to put the Green Party in the on the ballots. That was. I used to tell Howie Hawkins, if you're not running local candidates, then this ballot line is not going to last forever. But they didn't listen to me. But this is something that I believe is a valid reason to vote for RFK Jr. in New York.
All right. Well, still waiting for him to call me. Thank you, John, from the Binghamton area. It's 9:17 at WNBF. RFK Jr. Call now. The hotline is open for RFK Jr. 607-772-1290. Satisfaction guaranteed here at News Radio. Binghamton Now with Bob Joseph. Taking a look at the WNBF.com website, where some of the more interesting stories in our region break first. Intriguing, the big plan for fairly big pot production facility. I'm not sure. I'm sure of this. It won't be the first, nor will it be the last cannabis growing site in Binghamton. I'm sure there are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of cannabis growing sites around Binghamton now, but this one evidently is going to be licensed by the State Division of Weed, so we will be keeping a close eye on that. So they can't have signs. According to the developer Eric Rundels, the State Division of Weed will not allow signs on his planned cannabis cultivation operation at 225 Shenango Street. So if it does come to fruition, don't expect to see any signage, because it's supposed to be hidden in plain sight. So it'll be, I guess the building probably will look fairly similar to the way it does now, except he'll probably make sure that the numbers 225 appear on the building, which, based on a WNBF news inspection of the site, the required numbers don't appear on the building at this time, at least not that I could see. I hope they don't get cited by the city. So, a plan, we haven't been able to speak with Mr. Rundels about his cannabis growing vision, but this building is large. It's larger than you would think. If you drive by it, that's the building at 225 Shenango Street, right near the corner, not on the corner, near the corner of Shenango and Eldridge. You drive by it, it looks innocuous. I've driven by it probably thousands of times, and I've never really paid much attention to the building. It's always been sort of a mystery without any clue. But anyway, it's got a lot more space than one might surmise. 11,000 square feet, because there's a big section at the rear of the building. And Eric Rundels told the City Planning Commission he will use 3,100 square feet to cultivate the cannabis that so many New Yorkers crave. Security, of course, a necessity because some New Yorkers probably don't want to pay the high prices in licensed pot shops, so they'll have security cameras inside and outside the building. So if you have any plans of doing anything nefarious, don't even think of it. Also, don't even think of speeding on Riverside Drive. Carbon filtration systems will be installed to mitigate the odor associated with such facilities, so the people who live next door in the big apartment building right next door to the indoor cannabis farm hopefully won't have to be subjected to the pungent aroma of New York's fastest growing business, agricultural business. Interestingly, though, this location, as I understand it, as it was presented at the Planning Commission meeting, this location is not zoned for a cannabis-related business. You'll remember in 2022, the city adopted different locations for different types of cannabis-related businesses. This is not in one of those designated zones, so this would require a zoning change before they can go forward. The site is owned by something called Foreman Holdings, LLC of Ithaca. Related to George Foreman? No. At any rate, the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on the proposed cultivation project. You can learn all about this at WNBF.com. And who knows, this, I sense that there will be several jobs created. I mean, from what I understand, I've been told the plants don't grow themselves, so they need people to probably plant them, tend to them, then harvest them at the appropriate time, then trim them, and then package the stuff so it can be shipped to the big box stores. This is a great time to be alive. 9:23, Bob Joseph with you on a Wednesday morning. Binghamton Now, WNBF 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, streaming at WNBF.com.
Providing you with the best solutions of your lifetime. The KSO Insurance Weekly Spotlight with Karen Sweet O'Neill on News Radio 1290 WNBF.
This presentation is sponsored by KSO Insurance Solutions. Morning, Karen.
Morning, Bob. How doing?
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Glad to hear it.
You know, I always ask a few questions. When I drive to work, I take a different route each day, and then I look for people who are busy doing something, and I think, oh, there's a perfect opportunity to go up. It's like, hi, what's going on here? And I would say 98% of the time, people are so helpful, and they tell me more than I wanted to know. I've been working, there's one story, and I can't tell you the specific story. I've already done a preliminary report about 6 weeks ago, so I got some information about that, and then one thing led to another, and now I've got at least two other stories to work on just from going up to a guy saying, because I thought it was someone else. I thought it was the guy I needed to talk to about a specific story, and it turns out that person didn't know everything about the one story I needed to update. He knew a little bit, but he also knew about some things going on elsewhere. So, as they say, one thing leads to another.
That is true. That is true. That's how, hey, babe, good listener, you're a good reporter.
Well, here's a funny aside. So there's a local official who's been in office for a long time, and I have called him frequently over the years, and he's been on the program many times over the years. But lately we haven't talked a lot because there just hasn't been a whole lot going on in his particular community. So yesterday I called because I knew there were a couple things going on in his particular community. I thought, well, he's in a position to know. So he answers the phone with the phrase that pays. Guess how he answered the phone?
The phrase that pays.
Yeah, because on his caller ID, it popped up with my name. So guess what he said?
What?
This can't be good.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and I said, huh? He said, oh, Bob, I see it's you. And I said, this can't be good. I said, based on your past experience, you do have reason to say that. However, I said, in this particular case, it's good. There's good news. Good news to report. Oh, it was. Yeah. And so I asked him about one specific thing that he didn't know anything about. So I said, well, could you look into that for me? And he said, yes, I will. I'll get you the information by 3. And then there was another thing that I had just discovered about something that's going to be happening big, pretty big. I mean, not as big as when Amazon opens its new headquarters over on Washington Avenue. We can't talk about that yet because it's embargoed. But so he knew some other information about something that's going to be happening, a new business. And so, yeah, it was, as they say in diplomatic circles, it was a very constructive conversation.
Very good.
Yeah. See, you never know. You never know. I learned a lot in a 3.5-minute call. I learned a lot about 2 pretty important stories that people will just love to hear about.
Well, me too. Can't wait.
Yeah. Now the question is, when will they pop up on WNBF.com? Because there's actually a limit to how many stories I can push out per day because, what they say here at the radio station, spelling counts. So they don't like, if typos show up in my stories, as they occasionally do, they take points off. It's like, well, it's great.
Spelling does count.
Well, it does.
Well, because it can change the meaning of the sentence if it's
wrong. But sometimes it's just a typo. So sometimes
this is true.
You transpose letters or whatever, because also when I'm doing stories, and I know people don't understand this unless they've been in the lucrative news business, I'm multitasking. So while I'm working on one story, then I'm also paying attention to some other stuff that's going on in case I have to leave the newsroom and go out and cover breaking news, and then calls come in and emails. So, over the course of forming a story, I could be interrupted several times, dozens of times. So that's why sometimes things turn out the way they do. But it's also good because it proves that I haven't yet been replaced by AI.
This is true.
Because as soon as I'm replaced by AI, you're not going to see any typos. The stories produced by AI will make absolutely no sense, but there certainly won't be any typos.
See? Got to take the good with the bad, Bobby.
Anyway. That's not why you called. You called to provide information to our viewers. So what kind of information do you have to convey today?
I did. We were talking about life events because yesterday I gave a shout out to Rem Lickman.
Oh, the wedding, the big wedding.
The wedding.
Oh, and everybody heard that. I was talking to just random viewers after the show, and they heard that. They said it sounded like it was a great event.
It was.
So they heard the shout-outs that you gave to the local businesses that helped to make the wedding of your daughter so successful. I'm glad
because it's important that we, frequent these businesses whenever we can or whenever appropriate. And, they did a fabulous job. And the segue into that also, Bob, was that's a life event. Our daughter getting married, that's a life event. And throughout our lives, we have life events. Some are not so good, but most hopefully are good. So I thought we'd go through a little bit of a timeline and how insurances can play a part in the different types of insurances that you may need to seek out depending on the life event that's going on. So when Gary and I got married many moons ago, we made sure both of us had life insurance so that we would cover each other in the event one of us passed away. Then when I had Mary, we had our daughter, we increased our life insurance because, let's face it, they cost a lot of money, these kids. And then we also put into place a 529 plan. 529 plans are college savings plans, and they can become very inexpensive if you're just doing, I think we started and did like $100 a month. And it added up quite high once she started to go to college. So that was a very good idea, for people that have children. And sometimes grandparents are like, well, what should I get them? Because they have a gazillion toys. So a lot of times it's good to explore a 529 plan for the child. Now, as Mary grew older, obviously, she needed, we're talking car insurance and all these other types of things. And as we got older, Bob, Gary retired many years ago because he's older than I am, and he was at the fire department, and so fortunately he had a pension. So if you have if you have a pension that you are so fortunate to receive when you retire, one of the biggest decisions you make, Bob, is should I keep the whole pension? So if I'm getting $5,000 a month, let's just use that round figure, should I do that? And then if I pass away, the spouse doesn't get anything, which would be me? Or should we look at taking a reduction up front? And so in the event of Gary's death, I would be receiving a portion of his pension. A lot of that depends on the age that you take your pension and the health of the person that's retiring. In our case, what did we do? We got insurance to compensate for that reduction or that lack of pension if Gary should predecease me. So because he was young when he took it, we wanted to take the full pension so you could utilize those dollars. And then he got life insurance. So in the event that he predeceases me, then I will have coverage like I would for the pension. Then as we got older, and actually we weren't even all that old, I should say, older, in our 50s, we decided, because I was in the business, we should purchase long-term care insurance because nobody is above an accident or an illness that could wipe out your savings. So we each purchased a long-term care insurance policy. And, of course, I was in the business, so I could see all these things that were happening to people. And because we purchased it when we were in our 50s and actually early 60s for him, it was quite inexpensive than it would be if you wait until your 70s. So you want to look at long-term care insurance when you can. And if at the time they had hybrid policies, we would have done that. And that's when you have that life insurance policy with long-term care riders, but they didn't. So we have straight long-term care policies. And, as you age, when he became Medicare eligible, then we did all that. And then he's got Medicare, and then he has coverage, secondary coverage through the city. So all of these things with life events correspond with the insurance coverages that you should really look into. And in many, many cases, they're very inexpensive, especially term insurance when your children are young. You can get a policy for $500,000 for 20 years, and if you're in good health and you're in your 30s, you're looking at maybe $30 a month, $40 a month. That's pretty inexpensive to cover your whole family. So whatever life event you have going on, whether it's not so good, like a divorce, or it's good, like a wedding or having a baby, all of these things, you want to make sure that your family is secure and you know what types of insurances you need and what insurances you don't need to make sure your family has protection. We are at 1708 Vestal Parkway East, up above Plato's Closet and Style Encore. You can reach us several ways for an appointment. You can simply give us a call at 607-772-4898. You can Google us at KSO Insurance. All our contact information will come up, including our website. And if you missed the phone number, Google a phone number or go to the yellow pages, and we have a big display ad under insurance in the phone book.
Always important advice for those who want to be in the know.
That's right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Karen. Have a great day.
You do the same.
Thanks. And this live segment sponsored by KSO Insurance Solutions on News Radio WNBF 937, or as they would say on an automated station, it's 23 before the hour. And if it was a really poorly constructed automated station, they'd say, you're listening to WNBF. You're right, W. And Engington now. We'll take as many calls as possible under the current situation. Now the weather, for those who want to know. Mostly cloudy today, showers and thunderstorms likely. High 84. Rainfall today between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch. Mostly cloudy tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely, low 82. Mostly sunny tomorrow, high 79. Sunny Friday, high 81. Right now it's 82 in downtown Binghamton. That is 28 Celsius. Here at News Radio, WNBF, guidance from the National Weather Service. Isolated to scattered severe storms will be possible this afternoon and evening. I'm going to declare a News Radio alert. Boo, ba, boo. News Radio alert. Damaging winds and heavy rain will be the main threats. Do I expect tornadic activity? Actually, no, I don't expect it, but, there's probably a 1.2% chance of tornadic activity somewhere in the Northeast today. So, there you go. The weather alerts from News Radio Weather Alerts. Be alert. The weather needs more alerts. Air quality now is good. It's 38 AQI. Your air quality index from the Fresh Air Fund. Here's the latest. Everybody wants to know what President Joe Biden has to say. Let's take a moment and hear what President Biden had to say to the NAACP.
Thank you. Folks, my name's Joe Biden, and I'm a lifetime member of the NAACP. And I am all in. My word, I am all in. President Johnson, thanks for the introduction and for your leadership. Most of all, for your friendship. And thanks to all the thousands of members of across America that are here. One of the most important organizations in our country. And a special thanks, I mean it sincerely, to the members of Congress who are here, including Nevada's own Stephen Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't know where he is, but I know he's out there. As so many members of the CBC members defending freedom, like Benny Thompson of Mississippi, chair of January 6th Committee. And the best friend anyone can have, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina.
All right. Well, we could have gone on for another 28 and a half minutes, but I think that gives you a sense of how that went. And maybe later we'll play the whole thing. If time permits, play the whole speech to the NAACP, because you're probably not going to hear it anywhere else on this station. Meanwhile, on the corruption front, a man named Menendez has now been convicted. Yes, indeed. Corruption at the highest levels of the U.S. government. New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez has been convicted on charges of bribery and corruption. What a swamp it is. Senator Menendez was convicted of using his political influence for cash, cars, and mortgage payments. According to the news, well, he served as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Menendez did favors for Egypt and Qatar and assisted several New Jersey businessmen in exchange for gold bars and wads of cash. Not stacks of cash, wads of cash totaling about $500,000. The authorities found the stuff in a safe, some of the cash stuffed in his jacket and even his shoes. Prosecutors called it shocking levels of corruption. Menendez, and let's not lose sight of this, is a Democrat, a powerful Democrat who once led the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So he's described in the New York Times. So Democratic corruption at the highest levels of the USA government. Now even Democrats have been forced to call for him to leave early in disgrace. So we'll see if he does. There's a lot of speculation that given his past behavior, Robert Menendez has no intention of leaving early. You'll have to pull him, figuratively, kicking and yelling out of the House. Well, out of the Senate. So, anyway, well, that's too bad that we have so much corruption in our government. But, hey, you know, the root of it all, the problems, of course, the root of all the problems with the corruption and the swamp, it's just, as you would expect, it's just money. And where there's money, of course, there's going to be corruption. It's human nature. So, not sure. Oh, they have scheduled the sentencing for Senator Menendez on October 29th, so that's something to look forward to. We have to wait 3 months to find out what he could get. He's one of the Menendez boys. Even his wife has been charged. She wasn't tried in this particular proceeding, but she is expected to go on trial at some point, although some people speculate there will be a plea deal, and then she may not actually wind up going on trial. But she also seems to be a person of exquisite taste. A person who loves gold bars. Well, must be nice. Must be nice to have a safe full of gold bars and wads of cash. In your safe, in your jacket, in your shoes. That's no wonder people are sad. Don't be sad. I mean, it's not like everybody's corrupt. That's just certain officials in our government. Not everybody. It's 9:48 at WNBF, WNBF.com. If you have any thoughts about things that are happening. Another thing that's happening here in Binghamton, and we had reported in late May that the abandoned Subway sandwich shop, once home of the $5 footlong, that shop on Conklin Avenue at 232 Conklin Avenue at the corner of Tompkins Street, not far from the big bridge. There was so much excitement on the south side because that abandoned Subway shop was being turned into a deli and convenience store. And I was happy to discuss the new business with the Johnson City man who he had a vision, and he told me, he said he thought that his shop, the deli and convenience store, would fill a real need in that South Side neighborhood, especially after Wise shut down its supermarket. Remember, that supermarket just down the street, a few blocks to the east, had been there for, I believe, 6 decades, and then suddenly it's gone. So this seemed like a good opportunity. Obviously, the convenience store in Delhi at Conklin and Tompkins wasn't comparable to the Wise supermarket. It wasn't that big, but it still would provide a place that would be open 7 days a week. I'm sure there'd be at least a couple of jobs, and it would help people out. If they wanted to get something on their way to or from work, if they needed coffee or a delicious, healthy, carbonated, sugary drink, that would be a place where you could get them. But fortunately for now, the place is closed. Haven't been able to speak directly with the owner. I guess he's focused now on trying to get the place fixed up. According to Deputy Mayor Megan Hyman, a certificate of occupancy was never issued for the building. So that's the one thing you need to know. If you are going to start up a business, you have to comply with every regulation before you open your doors. So there are a lot of regulatory steps that you have to go through, including getting a certificate of occupancy. She also said in her email to me, the place failed a third-party electrical inspection and the fire suppression system was not installed properly. She also wrote that they believe that electrical contractors are there trying to get the things corrected so that store can reopen. So we'll monitor that, because I know people on the south side thought that was great, because every time I drove by there at the abandoned Subway shop, you know, I'm thinking of the good old days when subs were $5 and instead of what are they now? Imagine going in to the Subway near your home, if there are any still open, and saying, "Hi, give me a $5 footlong." I'd call the cops. So, yeah, it was a good time back in the day. So hopefully they'll get the things they need to get to and be able to reopen very soon. It's 9:52 here at WNBF, WNBF.com. Let's take a look, see if any relevant emails have been filtered. We've got our spam filter here at the Binghamton Now show. There's something going on with the spam filter. So if you send an email to your favorite talk show host and for some reason you don't get a response, maybe it's because it's been captured by the spam filter and thrown into the big pile of junk email. So, you know, I guess if that happens, you could try again or give me a call. 9:53 here at WNBF. Oh, here's an email that is relevant, and it's actually something, well, I'll get to it later. It looks like somebody's trying to call in. It's probably a competing submarine shop. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Jim. I'm calling from Port Crane. I was wondering, Mr. Joseph, if you heard anything about all these power outages around Broome County.
Well, I know they've happened, but as far as NYSEG offering any detailed explanations, no, NYSEG doesn't provide explanations.
Okay.
I mean, if NYSEG provided an explanation for the recent spate of power outages in Johnson City and Endwell and Port Crane and everywhere else, if they ever chose to provide any detailed explanation, we certainly would put it on the program. I don't believe that's part of their operating procedure. I don't believe NYSEG really ever provides detailed information about outages or certainly trends, because I I've been told by some people who live around here that they've noticed a trend of more power outages over the last 2 months than, say, in the previous couple of years.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember when they used to have a public information officer back years ago when they would have a major outage.
Well, they still have, they do have a person I can call, and if I called her and asked her a specific question about a specific outage, she would find out. But as far as the good old days when they actually had a couple of people who were always ready, willing, and able. Say if there was a power outage that happened at 9:55 this morning on Court Street, I could probably call them back in the good old days in about 15 minutes and get the information fast. These days, those days are gone, my friend. It's just like, say, with the phone company. If there's a phone outage or if there's a cable outage or an internet outage or something like that, good luck getting the information. All they want, and this is not a criticism, actually I admire them for focusing on the business of business. All these entities want is your money. They don't want to be bogged down by offering tedious explanations why things don't go right, because that would only slow down the overall processing of checks or electronic payments. So they really, now more than ever, it's incumbent on them to keep the money moving in. Move it.
I have to agree with you, sir. But okay, then.
All right. It's a legitimate question, and certainly if NYSEG wants to volunteer anyone to come in to the studio here and explain what's going on, because I too have a few questions, but based on recent experience, I don't see any reason that they're going to schedule a NYSEG president or vice president to come into the studio to explain what's going on. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not criticizing. It's just, hey, I've learned to adjust. I no longer get annoyed or irritated. I just kind of shrug and sigh and say, well, when I started, it didn't used to be that way. But, hey, same with Coca-Cola. It didn't used to be that way. But, we learn to adjust. You don't like it.
I guess you're right. We have to just learn to adjust to it.
Yep. And go buy a couple of generators if you don't like it.
Yep.
All right.
Alrighty,
thank you. Good question. I'm glad for the call. And again, if NYSEG wants to schedule an official to come in here and answer my questions and your questions, they know how to reach me. It's 9:57 with Bob Joseph live, just trying to help people on WNBF, WNBF.com. Joining us now on the midweek edition of the program is Johnson City Mayor Martin Maney. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are things in the village?
We're keeping our head above water. Fine. We're doing well.
It's the main thing. Keep looking forward.
Yes.
Always a lot to talk about, and I appreciate your willingness to come on, usually about every month or so, to update us.
I thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I find it helpful, and I think it's not only of interest, certainly, to the people who live and work in Johnson City, but I think it's also of interest to people across the entire area in Broome County. So people, say if they're going to go to the Oakdale Commons area or wherever, or they're driving down here, Harriel Drive or Riverside Drive, and they see something going on. In some cases, we've been able to talk about it on the program, so their questions sometimes are answered in advance.
Yes, which is good.
Yeah.
Keeps the guessing at a minimum.
Yes, and the idle speculation. There's so much else in life that people can idly speculate about, but at least here we provide a few answers every time you're on, so I appreciate it. First up, let's hit one of the most prominent spots in the village, and a lot of people have talked about it over the last several weeks, the status of the arch. The
status of the arch. Well, we're very happy that SHPO what we want to do in our plans cromulent. What we've planned to do is we know the arch is down now, and it's being re-engineered. And the preliminary plans that SHPO has signed off on are we're going to put up cast concrete piers, and we're going to face those piers with the original stones from the arch. And then the arch itself is going to be identical to what was up there, and that's going to be one piece of precast. And that has a design life of over 100 years. So we're trying to look to the future, and we're trying to minimize maintenance and yet preserving what the arch stood for and using as much of the original stones that we can to preserve its historical value. Stones that aren't going to be used are going to be, as I think I spoke before, we're going to display them. If Robertson would like one, we're going to put, one over in our pagoda. Actually, there is one in the pagoda now. When we redo Workers Park, we're going to put one in there. Maybe a Veterans Park, just so they're on display. Because they're an important part of our history. And hopefully, if everything goes well, by September of 2025, a new and improved, somewhat historical arch will be in place between Johnson City and Binghamton.
How will it look compared to the arch that existed, that had been there for 104 years and then ultimately was removed over the last few months? What will it look like in comparison with what people have remembered the arch?
Well, it'll look better because it's not going to be broken and chipped. It's supposed to be identical to what was up there when it was built in the early 20s of the last century. We have the original drawings, so they will use the original drawings to make up the form for the cast when they cast the concrete. And those stones were cast anyway. It's just going to be one big cast stone.
What about lighting? The new arch will have working lights?
Yes, the lights that were on top will be the original lights. They're going right back into service. And there was a channel in the old arch that we were going to put LED lighting into the channel so it would illuminate down a little bit. And the doors to the arch, they're going to go back up like that were on the original. And our vision is to, again, at Christmas time, to decorate the arch by putting some Christmas wreaths on it. And when you come into the village from the east, it'll all be decorated down to the Arch Street Bridge.
So the two bases, which right now are the only things that remain of the arch there at the
correct
border between Johnson City and Binghamton, they're going to stay. They're not going to change much in appearance, are they? No. There'll be cast concrete set on top of those, and then we're going to face them with the original stones from the arch that were already on there. So those are going to be exactly the same. It's just the arch itself is not going to be a tubular or steel superstructure with the stones hanging off of it. It's going to be one big piece of precast concrete. Will there be a time capsule? Will the village install a time capsule in the new arch? So say in 50 or 100 years, people could see what an iPhone looked like?
If an iPhone lasts that long, sure.
No, that's true. But we were just talking off the air that because of planned obsolescence, our current electronics, whether it's phones or anything else, are, I think, designed to last about 18 months, whereas you told me you still have one of the original black rotary dial phones that your parents had, and it's bigger.
It's actually my
grandparents, and it still operates. And when things were actually designed and manufactured to last.
Well, there was a small time capsule in the arch, and urban legend is the original time capsule. The items that were in it were stolen. So in this small time capsule that we unveiled or opened up was a old can of Budweiser beer. Yes.
Well, there you go. Well,
So at any rate, Yeah, our plan is to put some small significant things into a small time capsule when the arch is reconstructed.
All right. Well, I have two immediate suggestions. One, a can of beer, since it's being produced in the village of Johnson City.
Right.
And who knows, they'll probably still be around in a century. They've had a good start over the past decade. They seem to be well positioned to last for quite a while, for decades. So a can of one of their beers produced over at their site at Oakdale Commons, and also, just for kicks, the Monday edition of the Press and Sun Bulletin.
Yeah, okay, that's funny.
Well, I mean, for old time's sake. Oh, and of course the sign that says Gannett Drive.
Oh boy, yeah, there you go.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
it's a laugh riot.
Somebody just did suggest that we should, if Brizzetti's would reach out and give us the recipe for their pizza, to put a Brizzetti's pizza recipe in the time capsule.
Or if not the recipe, at least if not an entire Brizzetti's pizza box, at least a portion of it folded up with their legendary phone number. Who knows? They could even have a CD or a little cassette player, so as soon as people open up the time capsule, it'll play their lovely jingle with their phone number. Because remember, that Brizzetti's number is truly a historic part of Johnson City.
It is.
So, So, hey, all great ideas.
Yeah.
So getting back on some specifics of restoring the arch, what about cost?
We haven't got a full estimate on the cost yet because it's in the engineering study right now. But with this option, SHPO, saw that this was the safest option. It is the least maintenance. Maintenance costs will be minimal with this option. And as far as redoing it, it is the most cost-effective way of redoing the arch. So once we get our engineering study back, we'll be able to put some preliminary numbers on it. But at this time, we had the money set aside from the Greater Binghamton Fund. They have committed to helping us with any, some additional costs. We don't know exactly how much they'll cover yet, and actually how much more it's going to be. We're hoping that we still might be able to stay within budget.
So something under $500,000? Because I believe the contract with Lupini.
It's something. We were able to get the $462,000. There was $1 million set aside for it, and everything was coming in over $1 million. So when we got this $462,000 estimate, we took it immediately. So we have approximately $1 million budgeted for the arch that was given through the Greater Binghamton Fund. So with any smaller cost overruns, hopefully the GBF will be able to absorb those, and we won't see any cost to the taxpayers.
You mentioned that the arch, if things go as planned or as currently hoped, might be in place in September 2025. So if that's the case, when could the reassembly or reconstruction of the workers' arch get underway next year?
Most likely, once again, when construction season starts in April, we'll be able to start it. And unfortunately, to the dismay of some of the residents in Johnson City and Binghamton, that during the construction process, we'll have to close Main Street the entire time. And it's for safety reasons. We don't want anybody coming through the site and getting hurt.
So potentially that section of Main Street, the detour that was in place for several weeks this year, could be back and could potentially be in place for 4 or 5 months next year?
Yes. So please don't erase it from your memory bank. Let it remember, your muscle memory when you see the sign detour to turn up Carhart Ave and take the detour. Don't get all the way down to Beverly Place and think that you can get through, because that's a dead-end street, and those residents weren't happy with the increased volume of traffic that they experienced this spring.
Yeah, I know. They were unamused. I guess that's one word I could apply to it, unamused.
That's very civil.
Well, we do run a family show here because that's the kind of people we are. As far as what has happened to the steel or whatever that was, the original frame that was discovered to have apparently, what was it? It had lead?
Lead paint, yeah.
So what happened to that? Has that been disposed of, the original steel, and recycled?
That was removed from the site, and after that, I don't know if it's at Lupini, the subcontractor, if it's at their laydown yard, or if it's been disposed of as yet. But there wasn't a lot to salvage out of it. And we got to remember that it sat exposed for 6 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah. From, I think 1977 to 1982. Or, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there was something that a lot of people forgot about. I mean, some people still vividly remember, but I had kind of forgotten about it till we started talking more seriously about this current reconstruction project. Then I went into the newspaper archives to take a look at one of the pictures, and don't need to relitigate what happened there, but that was, we'll just, again, because it's a family show, we'll say that was a challenging saga for everybody involved.
It was, and I could remember the arch being dismantled, but I didn't realize that it was for 6 years.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think a lot of people forgot. Yeah, we can remember when it was exposed, but we kind of forgot the period of time that it was exposed to the elements.
Yeah, and then finally it was rededicated, I believe, about 41 or 42 years ago.
Yeah. 42, yeah.
Yep. We're talking with the Johnson City Mayor, Martin Maney. We've got more issues involving the village coming right up. Stay tuned. We're live and local on your Wednesday morning. I'm Bob Joseph on News Radio WNBF. I'm Bob Joseph. We're talking about Johnson City issues with the mayor, Martin Maney. Let's, we'll go just a little bit to the west of the arch site. The reconstruction project is continuing at the Lester Avenue Bridge. What's the status of the bridge reconstruction work?
The bridge reconstruction work is on schedule. They did find, though, that the decking was thicker than anticipated. So they've been putting extra crews on, and they've been putting extra shifts in so they can stay on schedule to get the bridge done. So again, that's slated to be open by the end of the construction season this year as well. And I can't wait.
Yeah, well, a lot of people really were happy that the section of Main Street that had been closed for several weeks because of the work on the arch, when that detour suddenly was lifted. So that was one opportunity for people to exhale, but indeed for people who have over the years counted on having that Lester Avenue Bridge to get from Main Street up to the north side, that's also meant an adjustment. So,
oddly enough, it's just, again, I can't emphasize enough, just go slowly and pay attention to the signs. Our new offices are located right at the base of the the Lester Ave Bridge, and still closed the first week of April, and here we are the third week of July, and people still come down and realize, oh, the bridge is closed, and they turn around, in front of our building and head back up to Main Street. So just please pay attention to the signs and go slow, and you'll be fine.
I've seen it. One thing I don't believe that we have talked about regarding the bridge project is there's a shuttle service, and some people are using it, but from what I understand, on many days, not a lot of people are using the black shuttle bus that helps people go from one side to the other, because not only is the bridge closed to vehicular traffic, the sidewalks are closed as well. So I know having the shuttle service was a requirement for this project.
Yes, the shuttle service is there for 2-hour increments 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And the bus does sit idle most of the time. And it takes people, from this side of the bridge down Main Street and over to Walmart. So
it's there. People, I wound up talking with one of the drivers, and he said, well, some people use it. And then some people, though, don't understand the concept. I mean, that shuttle bus isn't to take people, say, from there, and then, well, I want to go to Walmart, and can I stop by Brazetti's? It's not a free shuttle to anywhere in the village.
That's correct. Yeah, it's only to get you from the south side of the bridge to the north side of the bridge and then back over.
Speaking of that area on the other side of the bridge on the north side, and they used to have that fantastic $50 million state-of-the-art printing plant for newspapers that operated for 12 years, and then the company that had been printing newspapers there decided it was no longer in their interest to print newspapers in the Binghamton area, and then eventually they moved that process to New Jersey. Then at one point there was talk of, believe it or not, cannabis. Do you remember some kids were talking about growing weed in there, and that didn't happen. I guess there were issues regarding the deed or something with the property next door. I never really understood all the legal issues, and then the Binghamton University Foundation acquired it, and they have used it, I guess, in some capacity for books. I remember one time they were actually giving people shots. Back in the day, people were getting COVID shots there.
Yes.
So it's already over the last few years since the newspaper plant shut down in 2018. Can't believe it's been 6 years. But anyway, it's been used for various things, but there's a new chapter for that former newspaper printing facility.
Yes, and it's very exciting. I want to say maybe it's 3 weeks ago, excuse me, Binghamton University had a major announcement there with the National Science Foundation that, excuse me, they're going to be expanding their battery operations into the Gannett building. When the foundation took possession of the Gannett building, they were using it as a storage facility for the library on campus while they were refurbishing the library. So they took all the books out of there and they're back. And they did have a couple of the health and science classes they put into the Gannett building, but they're going to be moving them out. I don't even want to call it the Gannett building. We're just going to call it the old printing building. At any rate, so now they're going to be in with the National Science Foundation. They got a $160 million grant, and they're going to, it's a 97,000 square foot facility, and they're currently refurbishing it now. And it's going to house their research and development and light manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries moving forward. And it's, I guess the research, and we have Dr. Stanley Whittingham over at BU, who was just recently knighted and is a Nobel laureate or Nobel Prize winner. And it's just amazing to have that type of talent here in the Binghamton area, and they're going to be focusing their energies at the old printing plant to develop new batteries, new technologies to help us move forward with the clean green energy initiatives that the state is focused on.
Well, with that development, with a project of that magnitude, it would seem that somebody at the university could come up with an appropriate name for the street that would be more in keeping with what's going to be happening at that former printing facility.
And that is being discussed now by President Stanger and his staff.
So has the village offered any input as to names? I mean, hopefully the name that they come up with outside this battery thing isn't too shocking.
Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah, they haven't given us any suggested names yet. And I'm sure that they're searching too for the right time and the right name. And we're just hopeful that all this initiative that BU is taking and putting in here, at the end of the day, hopefully leads to manufacturing and some large scale manufacturing jobs and good paying manufacturing jobs in this area. I mean, I think that's the whole catalyst behind it, is not only to develop the batteries here, but to have some type of pipeline into a manufacturing component afterwards.
It's 10:35 at WNBF. Our guest is Johnson City Mayor Martin Maney. Back on the other side of Main Street, over on the south side, I still call that the Corliss Corridor, the BU Health Sciences campus. Work is continuing at the former Oslid building, 18 Park Street, and environmental remediation is underway, and they think that'll be completed in the fall. And they've got a few other things going on. So there's a substantial amount of work that is being done over there as well at the east end of the Health Sciences campus.
Yes, I believe their vision is to, I think right now they're going through asbestos remediation, and they want to repurpose the old Oslid building and put their the classes that they had over at the printing press into that. I think they had physical therapy and speech pathology. Those classes or those curriculums were housed at the printing plant, and they're going to move those into the Oslid facility. And that's going to take, I think, the first 2 floors, with the third floor of the Oslid facilities is open to maybe some other tenants that that are or classes that they could potentially move into there.
Going down Corliss Avenue to the west, not far from there is, of course, the Village Park, the small park on the corner, Jennison Park, that's been reconstructed. A lot of work has been done there over the last year, but it's still fenced in. It hasn't been opened. Yes,
the delay in that is we're waiting to get a meter from NYSEG, so we can open that park up and take the fence down and mow it. And it's really going to be a nice pelcritudinous addition to the parks that we have in the village. It's just going to be beautiful.
So could that happen this summer, as soon as the electrical work is done?
That's the vision. I mean, myself personally, when I drove by the other day with the fence up and the park itself and the grass looking like that, I'd like to take a section of the fence down and take a mower in there myself and clean it up, just because it hasn't got the look that we want to present to the village, and it's kind of a gateway. So yeah, as soon as we could get that meter from NYSEG, we'll get that fence down. We're going to get it mowed. We've got a few other things to tidy up there, a small fence behind the performance area, and then start, because there's art pads in there to bring the art installations in. And I just think it's going to be a nice little place to sit and relax. And who knows, hopefully in the near future, when Binghamton University's park comes to fruition, it all ties in well, and maybe Naima Crajian across the street at the Goodwill or the Shore Family Firehouse stage, she could bring some of her performers over there and maybe have some small little concerts or art activities in the park.
It's been more than 3 years since we first reported on the university's planned green space project there. The university wound up, or the University Foundation, wound up acquiring countless properties and knocking down a Vietnamese restaurant building and a couple of really, I thought, still nice apartment houses. But anyway, they had a vision, so they bought up all these properties for ostensibly for a green space, and I've seen no work on it. I mean, it was in March of 2021 that we were first talking about it. I've not seen a darn thing done.
Well, I hopefully they can acquire the last property in there. They were anticipating, all right, you know what, we're just going to put the park in and leave the property there. But then they just thought that would not be a good look. And on the village's end, we took Lewis Street after all the properties came down. We turned that into a one-way street because we anticipated a heavier need for parking. So it's all diagonal parking. And we've been for 3 years too trying to get partnered with a EV charging station, somebody to come in and develop that and put a couple EV charging stations in there, because it's going to be convenient if people come in to visit the campus or to the park or to our main street, where they could pull in, they could park, and they could charge their electric vehicles while they're enjoying our downtown.
Well, the interesting aspect, as you mentioned, there's just one property that remains there on Lewis Street. And I know from talking a couple of years ago to the guy who owns it, he told me with no equivocation, I'm not selling that. But by the same token, what I understand about the world is everything's for sale.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, that's a fair statement. It's just what you feel your fair sale price is.
Because I know that one apartment house, last I knew, it was still fully occupied. So, and I think the people who were living there liked it. It seemed to be, I've never been in, but it looked like, a decent place for residents. But also, if the university has this overarching plan to develop sort of a green space buffer between the health sciences campus on Corliss Avenue and Main Street, having that one remaining building there, as you say, just aesthetically, it wouldn't be as pleasing for the overall project if that was still there.
No, it wouldn't. And, hopefully that they could come to some sort of agreement so they could finish the project, because it's kind of also would help us get people. It gives us an avenue to get more people down to Main Street to help the businesses on Main Street, with foot traffic. Like I said, the one pizza parlor that opened on Main Street, they're just knocking it out of the park, and it's not because they had a grand opening. It's because of the foot traffic, and they routinely sell out of pizzas. So, again, this will just help if we could get that park going. It will just help funnel more people down to Main Street to help other businesses move forward and thrive.
Do you know if the university is planning to buy another property on Main Street?
I do not. I am fortunately one of the last people to know when and if these things occur.
All right. Well, stay tuned, because WNBF is where news breaks first. Never know.
No, you don't.
That's what I love about my job.
And again, when some of these announcements come, Bob, you'll be the first one I reach out to.
Thank you. We'll continue our conversation about the Village of Johnson City with the mayor, Marty Maney, in just a moment. It's Wednesday morning, WNBF. As we continue talking about Johnson City with the village mayor, Martin Maney, one thing that I noticed recently near the BU Health Sciences campus is the installation of some flock safety cameras. I guess they're automated license plate readers. So what do you know about these new license plate readers that have been the source of some controversy in Binghamton? Were you advised, or what is the status? Did the village put them in, or did the university put those in?
To be honest with you, Bob, I'm not 100% sure. I know we've thought about doing it as a village, and I don't recall us acting on it, and it could very well be the university to maintain security at their campus. All
right. Do you recall if...
I'll have an answer, though, for you the next time I'm on the show.
Yeah, and I'm under the impression, based on preliminary reporting, I believe the university installed those. But what I was curious about was if that is the case, because one is near the nursing school and another is near the senior clinic across from the nursing school parking lot. What I was wondering is if the village at least was notified by the university, because those plate readers are not just focusing on people coming and going on university property. They're collecting license plates from people just driving around on Corliss Avenue or Willow Street.
Yeah, and again, I can't give you a good answer because I don't have a good answer. In the past, historically, the university police has worked very well with our police in keeping them informed. So it just might not have funneled down to this office yet, and they very well may have approached Chief Dodge and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to put these in." So again, I'll have that answer for you the next time I'm on the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I don't know if you followed some of the discussions that were going on in Binghamton with the money that was allocated by the district attorney's office. And finally, City Council wound up accepting that money to expand the flock safety license plate reading network. But this was the first time that I saw these devices outside Binghamton.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unfortunate, even with the events that we saw last weekend. The world right now is in a little bit of a turmoil, and safety is paramount. And I think any device that we could put in to advance the safety of our visitors and our residents, we need to take advantage of. And if you think otherwise, I don't know. It's just the world has changed, and anything we can do to deter crime and deter violent actions, we need to take advantage of.
Right. But until I mentioned it, you personally hadn't seen or been aware of these?
No, and it's just, I guess I'm not looking up. I drive through there every day. When I leave this office, I go over to my mom's house, and I go right by the campus. I go right by the senior. I go right up Jennison, and everything's right there, and I have not seen them. So I guess I should be a little bit better with my situational awareness as well.
Well, they're easy to, when you're not looking for them, you don't notice them. Then when you start looking for them, it seems like, especially in Binghamton, it seems that I don't know how many dozen they set up in Binghamton over the last year or two, but once you see them, it's like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. You know, I mean, they're relatively plain looking if you're not paying attention, but.
Right.
I was advised, actually, I was in touch with Chief Dodge, and apparently, and he did confirm that those flak devices were not part of the village. So he said that he believed that it was something that probably the university had done. Of course, he also pointed out, as you know, and as we've reported, there are some existing cameras, traditional cameras that have been located at a few points in the village. I mean, they've been there for years.
Correct.
Along, some of the heavily traveled points, and I know the village police department also has a portable unit that it can use as necessary.
Yes.
So.
Yes, but and there's various points throughout in the village parks. Throughout the village, we do utilize cameras just, again, to enhance the safety for our residents.
And speaking of parks, I haven't heard of any recent big problems in any of the village parks. What's been the experience over the first few weeks of the summer season with the parks, including Floral Avenue, where sometimes in the past there were issues, including vandalism, that resulted in the temporary closure of the park? What are you hearing about Floral Avenue and CFJ Park and the North Side Park? How are things going?
Hopefully we don't jinx ourselves. Floral Ave Park, with the exception of the pool, we had an issue with getting the numbers right for the pool with the health department, and as soon as we get that right, there's a surge from NYSEG, which fries our pump. So other than that, Floral Ave Park, and we're in the process of, we're going to start refurbishing the baseball field over there, or the softball field, so that'll be better for use instead of what it's like now. We're going to put the dirt infield back in. CFJ Park again as well. It's Virginia Ave Park. If nobody's been up there lately, they should check that out. The parking lot has all been redone. The softball fields have been redone, and that really came out nice. Northside Park, which never used to be a problem child, is now a problem child with vandals running through Northside Park, throwing garbage all over, breaking benches, breaking equipment. So we're paying more attention to that right now with the police presence, and it's just too bad that there's some bad actors that have to ruin a park. I mean, what did the park ever do to you? Nothing. It's there for people to enjoy, not to be vandalized.
So is that park going to have to be temporarily closed, or is that even an option?
No, there's no way we could close that park.
I didn't think so.
It's one of the few parks that's not fenced in.
Yeah, but lately, North Side, for some reason, has started to have some problems that weren't being reported previously.
That's correct. Yeah, that seems to be the park of choice for the ne'er-do-wells this year.
Have they caused a lot of damage?
Just nuisance stuff, where the garbage is thrown all over, so now it's blowing around, so we got to get over there. And it's, again, we're short-staffed. Now that the Parks Department, these guys are going to have to spend a couple hours in Northside Park picking up all the garbage and fixing stuff, that means that the other parks aren't going to get the necessary attention that they need on a daily basis for maintenance.
And you mentioned about the pool over at Floral Avenue. So is that out of service at the moment?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that the surge was a couple weeks ago, and it's just after we got our chemicals balanced right and it fried the pump. So I'm not sure if they got the pump in and replaced it or not.
Talking with Martin Maney, the mayor of Johnson City. Is the old village office building on Main Street on the market yet? I know we've had several discussions about the plans by Johnson City to sell that property now that you're set up at Lester Avenue.
Yes. Bob Harkness Realty is handling that. We just signed a contract. We ourselves were trying. We had some interest from the county. They thought, that they looked at it to see if there was something that they could use, and Binghamton University looked at it, and this office reached out to a couple of retailers as well to see if it would fit for them, and, just trying to save the commission fees. But since we've come up empty, we feel it's time. It's time to move forward and get it actively marketed and hopefully get it sold here in the not too distant future.
What does the village hope to get for that building? Is there an asking price?
$500,000 firm.
All right.
And it seems to be, well in line with what. And it's a large building. It's got a road behind it, multiple.
And
assets.
It's solid. I mean, as we reported a couple months ago, as a result of the tour that you provided. And I can't remember if we spent a couple of hours going through the building from top to bottom. I mean, it's a very solid building. It's interesting, and people interested could also look up the story that we did at WNBF.com because there's a lot more space in there than some people might realize. One thing that I think is going to be of interest and probably exciting for some village residents is plans for streaming some of the key village meetings. Yes,
since we've been in the new facility, it's been a constant work in progress to get all the technology pieces up and running. Last night we taped the meeting, and it should be going up on a YouTube channel. We're hoping to go live next Tuesday with the planning board, where we're going to have a YouTube channel where we're going to stream, the planning board, zoning board, the work session, and the village board meeting. We'll be streaming those live on a YouTube channel. And hopefully the kickoff starts. The ones that last night's meeting we hope to upload, so it'll be on there. But the kickoff will be with Tuesday night's planning board meeting, where we're going to go live with that.
We had discussed, I think last year when we were talking about logistically moving from the Main Street site over to Lester Avenue, that the design of the new village office facility was incorporated this as a possibility, looking ahead to providing the video recordings.
Yes, and we understand people, they have an interest in what's going on with the village. They just can't make the meetings, and we can't. The village website, we publish our minutes, but the minutes can't be published until after they get approved the following meeting. So people, well, your minutes aren't accurate or they're not up to date. Well, there's a reason for it. It's because they have to be approved by the village board before they could be published. With the YouTube, with the live streaming that they'll get, or they'll be right there where they could see what's going on and what business is being conducted by the village for, again, the planning board, the zoning board, and the village board.
One final thing. We only have a few seconds left. Davis College, are they getting close to starting work on the apartment project?
They're still moving forward with going through the planning and zoning. Well, not as much the zoning, but the planning process. They're almost completed with the planning process, and once that's done, they'll be able to start whatever type of renovations they're looking to do.
Johnson City Mayor Martin Maney, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Enjoy your day.
You too. And there you go. I always have a few questions, and we get some interesting answers about what's going on around here. Another hour coming right up here on WNBF. These days, it seems wherever you go, someone's watching. Maybe lots of people, lots of entities. And now, more than ever, we're seeing these automated license plate readers popping up. Of course, they've been in Binghamton now for, I think, at least a few years, and more have been installed over the past several months, and there are more to come. from what we understand. And then also of interest to me, and we talked about this just a few minutes ago with Johnson City Mayor Martin Maney, now these flock safety devices that record the license plates of all the vehicles that pass by on a street, at least 2 are in place in Johnson City near the Binghamton University Health Sciences campus. One person who has raised some concerns about the growing use of surveillance devices, and specifically the system and network that's been established by Flock Safety across the country, is Bill Martin, who not too long ago retired from Binghamton University, lives in Johnson City. And Bill, welcome to our program. I know you've heard some of our discussions in the past about these license plate readers and cameras.
No, thanks, Bob. You've been a kind of leader in bringing this to light, for about 5 years now. And I wasn't aware of the new cameras going in until I read it on your website. But Flock is an interesting case, and there's a real big push now to put these cameras all across the state. The governor just gave out $127 million to upstate police departments and sheriffs to see them everywhere. And what happened at City Council a couple of weeks ago, where people from the community said, what's going on, who's doing this, who gets the data, and so on, is going on around the country. People are, growing concern. I don't think anybody's worried, if a camera catches someone during an Amber Alert for, a child abduction or, a stolen car. But that's not really what's going on here. What Flock wants to do, and has done actually, is link, thousands of cities with thousands of cameras, billions of data records, and share it across public and private companies. It's not just law enforcement. The default contract for Flock gives them the ability to share the data worldwide. So that means every time, Bob, you drive down Main Street or drive down Riverside, and whether you're going to a mosque or your church or, a health clinic, you're going to get recorded. If you collect that data over time, I can pretty much tell after a couple months or a year exactly who you see and who you like and what church you go to. So it really is a growing concern, and it's now being ramped up with, much better technology on a much wider basis. And we simply don't know what's going on. And Binghamton is a leader, as is the university. Johnson City is surprising. Those 2 new cameras there are actually, I think, on Binghamton University property, which is fully gated with Flock cameras on every road entrance into the campus. But, Endicott has them as well. And, of course, Binghamton has been, expanding them as you've charted.
Well, the thing that I found fascinating about the 2 that I noticed near the Binghamton University buildings in Johnson City, they're located right next to the curb in both cases on Corliss Avenue and on Willow Street. And those license plate readers, they're not focused on people entering, say, a BU parking lot or the actual BU facility. They're focused, as far as I can tell, on the traffic that's passing by. So anybody who drives by on those streets, say if you're traveling between Main Street and Floral Avenue or along the Corliss Avenue corridor, your information, for whatever reason, obviously they want to keep the university facilities and students and faculty and all support personnel safe. That's why Binghamton University now has, the police department has a pretty sizable presence there in Johnson City, and they've got a working agreement, as I understand it, with the Village of Johnson City. So there is, I guess, a contract or a memo of understanding of how the university police interact and work with the village police.
Well, it's even a little larger than that, because the university, like the police departments locally, all are on the board of directors of the so-called Crime Analysis Center downtown, through which data is coordinated. So if you are a signatory to those agreements, you can get instantaneous reports, and from all we know, retain them forever from people who drive down, Riverside Drive, down Main Street, bypass the mosque in Johnson City, going to the synagogues on Riverside. That data is, retained for years. And then there's the question of where do the cameras go? It's not clear why the cameras, as you say, are placed the way they are. I thought at BU they would be in the parking lot in Johnson City or at the door entrances. Now there's facial recognition cameras there everywhere, and BU's got more cameras than any other institution locally. But no, they're recording people, going up and down the parkway endlessly, shared with everyone. There are a lot of cameras, for example, on Carroll Street, in the poorer sections of town, but not the richer sections of town. What sort of not only persons in cars, but neighborhoods are targeted by the placement? We don't know. There's absolutely no transparency. We don't know what's collected. We don't know how long it's retained. We don't know who has access to it. And we know that there's a lot of cases of, misidentification and of abuse all around the country. Cities in California, Indiana, Michigan, even in New York have been doing what was raised last week here was, having a moratorium or ban license plate readers and the new facial recognition cameras. In some states, it's unconstitutional. New Hampshire has a straight law, for example. You can't retain your data for more than 3 minutes. But normally with Flock, the data gets shared not just with police departments, including the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA and everybody else, but with private companies. So you can buy access to that database. Data is worth money. You can monetize it. We don't know if people in Dubai or Uganda, India, or the Philippines have access. These big databases have indeed been hacked by these large camera companies. It's Flock, but also Motorola and Vigilant. And neither the university nor the city will actually give you any information. There's absolutely no transparency. Who's the provider? What are the contracts like? Some of us have asked for that information. We've been told, we can't hand it to you, or it's tied up, in freedom of information.
Now,
so
the latest twist in what eventually, I guess, is going to be a so-called security network, so we can all feel extra safe whenever we venture outside our homes or off our property. Now, even FedEx has jumped into the act and is part of the Flock safety network. So FedEx trucks are being equipped with AI-powered cameras recording everything they see, and they're sharing that with Flock, so that becomes part of the Flock database. So now private enterprise has been enlisted along with the governments, whether it's Binghamton or Broome County or BU. So it seems like it's a slippery slope where soon every entity likely might be participating in collecting pictures, video, and license plate data, and then sending it to the big Flock computer, wherever that might be.
No, the cases of people getting access to are legendary now. You have, the people who can get to those databases can decide, who's going to a certain kind of club or a gay bar, and, gay people have been extorted. You have lots of cases of people, collecting the data, getting access on the romantic partners. You have cases tied up with domestic abuse tied to the data. You have police departments gridding neighborhoods, meaning they drive up and down the street and record all the cars, and over time you have an exact track of who's in what neighborhood and when. That's been done outside mosques in New York, as we know. So, in addition to all the problems, the cameras, frankly, the facial ones simply aren't very good at facial recognition. So particularly, black persons, people of color get misidentified, get arrested, get thrown in jail, get deported to another state. I mean, these are all real cases because someone took a picture that looked like someone else. So there's a real potential for abuse here. And it isn't just, the individual officer. It's really the lack of any control over who has access and where the data gets shared, particularly if I can create a profile of Bob Joseph by knowing where he goes and who he sees over a couple of months or a couple of years. That's pretty powerful. And it's not just police, as I said. Flock is a private company. It's monetizing the data. And we're facilitating it. We just don't know where it goes. FedEx is the same. The Ring Corporation with its doorbells had the same problem. They opened that data all up to law enforcement. All sorts of problems arose, and they shut it down. There was a big protest over Ring. I don't know what will happen with FedEx. I think we all expect to be observed. We all have cell phones. We know they're tracked wherever they go. What we don't expect to do is have it collated by unknown agencies, shared with millions of agencies around the country, around the world, billions and billions of data records compiled and shared in ways we don't know. And that's a real potential for abuse.
Why do you think government officials, say local government officials and police chiefs and universities, why do you think they're reluctant to talk about the deals that they're making with flock safety? It would seem to me if these are good deals and they have carefully thought out all the possibilities, including some that you brought up, that local officials, whether it's mayors or police chiefs or university presidents, would be out in front of this and saying, look, we understand these concerns about privacy and potentially misuse of data by people who aren't authorized to have access to it. We understand that people have questions, and so here is the information that we have developed because we too share your concerns, and here is some of the information that could allay some of your concerns. It seems to me, at least around here, whenever this issue comes up, either people pretend that they don't have much information, or if they have information, they say, well, we can't really talk specifically because of security issues or because it's a law enforcement matter. And for the life of me, I don't understand how describing how these systems work will affect the ability. I mean, criminals, first of all, in my experience, since the first video cameras were put up in the city of Binghamton by Mayor David several years ago, and then license plate readers, I haven't heard of any stories where criminals have decided they're not going to commit crimes, they're not going to rob places or burglarize places or shoot people in Binghamton because of the surveillance network. So I'm not sure how many crimes it really prevents. And I'm also not sure how many crimes are solved. I'm sure some are, because let's face it, if somebody does something out here near the station, fortunately we have a city police surveillance camera at our front door so they can see anytime when I come and go. So I feel good about that. If anything happens to me, that they'll at least have a recording of it. And then if, at least after the crime, that'll help potentially solve it, because they'll be able to look at the tape and maybe vehicles that were in the area. But I don't understand the argument that some make that it's going to prevent crime.
There's not a very good basis for that. We're convinced when they say they capture a car that's been stolen or we see an Amber Alert. But, less than 0.1% of the data collected by license plate readers, there's a California study, right, had any relation to any public safety interest. There's a series of studies, some of them published in Forbes magazine, a capitalist tool magazine, on how studies show that, the crime has not been sort of prevented by or resolved hardly any degree at all by the expansion of surveillance. So I think we're on thin grounds to say it prevents crime. I think, we do see it's an overreach on the part of the state and on the part of police agencies. And I'm not quite sure why it is so difficult to find out, answers to the standard questions that are in the public contracts over, who collects the data, how long is it retained, who does it get shared with. There are sort of very specific things city councils have done, around the country to, control that kind of use of the data and its collection. We don't have any access to that kind of information locally between the local police department, cities, or the administration of FedEx or Binghamton University. I tried foiling this data about 8 years ago, and I was simply told, well, we can't give it to you for security reasons. I'm sorry, those contracts are open state contracts. They're open to inspection legally. It's hard to get. I think we'll see more in the coming years because I was surprised when people in the community got up in the city council and spoke about this issue. And that was only $60,000 worth of cameras. Now we're talking, millions of dollars in the local area, which is the third generation of surveillance cameras. And it will expand. There's no doubt about it.
Well, at this rate, soon there will be zero crime.
Yeah.
Or the crimes that are committed at this rate should be solvable within a matter of minutes, unless people start riding bikes or unlicensed mopeds. Actually, that's one thing that didn't occur to me, because here in Binghamton has been this push this year by the mayor to have tighter regulations on people zipping around neighborhoods using unlicensed scooters or whatever. But I actually hadn't thought too much about that. Maybe some people actually are reverting or using those now instead of using cars that have license plates that could be captured by the plate readers. So if they're engaged in committing crimes, I remember there was it last year or the year before, some miscreants broke into someone's house just outside the city of Binghamton and stole a whole bunch of weapons. And as I recall, I don't know if they were on bikes with a trailer or a motorized scooter or something. So at least they couldn't be tracked using license plates. It never occurred to me till now. Maybe because of the plate readers, they opted to switch over to unregistered vehicles.
I bicycle, and I am aware that when I'm on a bicycle, I'm not being recorded by license plate readers. Surveillance cameras, yes. And I think that calculation has been made in some shoplifting crimes in New York City, for example, where there are cameras on every block. And of course, you can presumably, if we get enough of them, track the persons who move down the side streets and not just the main streets of Binghamton.
Well, maybe it'll get to the point where, as a public safety initiative, everybody's driveway will have a plate reader, so whenever they leave their house, just in case we need to know for our own records, we left the house at 7:57 this morning, and we came back at 6:22 p.m. in case people want to know. I mean, it might get to that point.
No, and that data is already collected. There are license plate readers on cars, certainly on the campus. And that simply go up and down the parking lots in parts of town and record those. And if that data is kept over a long period of time, I know exactly where Bob Joseph or Bill Martin is located and stops, and what church I may go to, what clinic I go to, and who visits my house.
Oh, yeah, and even it just occurred to me, this would be good for people interested in confidential sources, who I might be talking with for a news story I might be working on. That they'd be saying, "Oh, no, I didn't realize that person is talking to a journalist."
No, that's already happened. I mean, if someone's angry at Bob Joseph's coverage and has access to the database, it's very easy to see where and who you've been. So I think this is a real problem for journalists. Well, there's no question about it. You can't presume that there's any confidentiality in these matters.
Can you imagine, and for people who are old enough to know what I'm talking about, if Woodward and Bernstein were trying to work on their reporting during the Watergate era, and certainly they had some clandestine meetings with sources, sometimes in parking garages. Can you imagine if they attempted to do that type of reporting today?
It would be very difficult. We've seen some of those kinds of coverages, captured now. You would think that if there's cameras, in those buildings, they would capture also who broke in to political offices. But for some reason, camera footage seems to have a tendency to disappear when it comes up for, a document or attacking, public figures or police agencies. I've sat in city court and watched, people say, well, there's a camera in the police car, but it wasn't working that day. Or trying to get access to body cameras of police persons.
Well, sometimes they just forget to turn them on.
Yeah.
Or what happened, there was actually a high-profile case here in Binghamton recently where state police had, I believe, recorded an initial interview with someone who had made a complaint, and I guess as part of a routine, after 30 days or so, it was just deleted. And yet that could have proven to be very interesting as part of a prosecution process and go into trial. But as it turns out, when a defendant, somebody who had been accused, wanted to try to use that body cam video that was recorded, it was no longer around.
Yeah, no, it has a tendency to disappear. But again, we simply don't. It's very difficult for the public to get any access to this kind of information. We don't have any. There's been no real statement or transparency or discussion or response by the mayor, by the DA, by the sheriff, or the chief of police on what they do and what they collect and who has access to it. Since we are one of the 10 regional centers for so-called crime analysis, which, there's several $1 million now have been spent on the Intelligence Fusion Center downtown, which is where the old fire department used to be. We are linked up to not simply regionally, but to the state and nationally. So where does that data go? Who has access to it? There's just been too many examples of, abuse, to feel comfortable about it. And it's too easy to create a profile on anybody with that kind of data.
Bill Martin, a retired Binghamton University professor of sociology and a Johnson City resident, I appreciate your joining us and offering some of your thoughts.
Okay, no, thanks, Bob.
Take care. 11:32 at News Radio WNBF. 607-772-1290 is the Binghamton Now number. We're live every weekday morning at 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, streaming at WNBF.com. Let's go back to the phones. Jesse and Owego, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Robert. I know exactly where all that data is going concerning all the traffic license plate readers. You have any idea where?
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, so they can take a look at how many chicken sandwiches we buy on Sundays when they're not open.
There you go. I have an alternative. Have you ever heard of Macedonia?
Yeah.
Well, Hillary Clinton says that's what caused her to lose the election. It was the Macedonian data content servers.
Well, hey, anything's possible. As long as they don't misuse it. Jesse, as long as they use it only for good and never for evil.
Well, there you go. You know what? You better look out for yourself, because given that you said that you travel a different way every day you go to work, with all them license plate readers that are out there, they might think you might be doing something on the dark side. You never know.
Well, fortunately, most of the local law enforcement people already know me. So bottom line is, if I ever were try to really pull something, odds are I couldn't get very far, because I'm not saying they all, but a high percentage of them know me and my vehicle, and they'd be like, oh, there goes Bob again. All they have to do is say, attempt to locate the Bobmobile, last seen heading west on Main Street toward where the arch used to be. And then, before I know it, it's like, oh, hi, Bob. Why are you misbehaving? Why can't you be a good news guy?
Well, as long as you're not taking bribes.
I will say, it's, as I said, with the camera that they installed about 5 years ago outside the beautiful Binghamton Now studio, it certainly has kept me honest, and it helps encourage me to get to work on time, because if I show up late, they've got it on tape. Or if I try to leave early. But the thing is, sometimes because of breaking news, sometimes I have to zip out of here, and who knows? They must have a collection at the Intelligence Center, and they play it at their holiday parties, like a 4-minute reel of the things that they've edited together of me jaywalking. Oh, look, there he's jaywalking across Court Street. Oh, look, he's crossing State Street. That guy is incorrigible. He's on a daily basis violating the city's jaywalking regulations with impunity.
Well, as long as you're not taking bribes and putting gold in your in your shoes and
unlike that Senator Bob from New Jersey and potentially his wife, he's been convicted. She may go on trial later this year. No, I'm not collecting gold bars or big wads of cash. So I think that's the good thing. If the worst they could get me on is jaywalking, being basically an incorrigible, nonstop jaywalker, and they may have to make an example out of me.
Now I'm getting nervous on my beer run. I got to be extra cautious.
Anyway, thanks for calling in.
Have a good day, Bob, and just don't tell me no lies. Keep your hands to yourself.
All right. I love it. What a great time to be alive. James from Endwell, good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, it reminds me of 1984 Orwell. Back in the 70s and 80s, we were concerned about privacy, but I don't know, with crime and stuff the way it is, I think I'm not so worried about that anymore. But
well, that's what they want you to think. I mean, it's, I still maintain, and a lot of people don't believe me, I still maintain crime in general, whether it's around here or across the country, crime in general is pretty much constant, and again, it fluctuates from 1 week or 1 month or 1 year to the next, but on average, all types of crimes, whether it's vehicle break-ins or violent crimes or white-collar crimes, business crimes, I think generally it's about the same rate as it always has been. The biggest difference now is we get to see great videos and some not so great videos, including some vertical videos of crimes committed, because now everybody is armed with at least one camera. So in the past, up until say 15 or 20 years ago, lots of crimes were being committed, but very few were being documented by, everybody over the age of 3.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining, I guess. Because
that's what it's become.
You got the cop shows and things. We like to watch those.
Well, exactly. I mean, we're a nation. We've always loved crime procedurals on TV. I've always been. Going back as a kid. Adam 13, one Adam 13, one Adam 13. Your lucky car has been stolen, or whatever. Those were great shows. And then ultimately NYPD Blue and Law and Order. We can't get enough of crime dramas.
Social media.
Yes.
Media, we get addicted to looking at all the animal videos.
It's
accidents.
It's crazy. It's sick.
You would never get to see otherwise.
It's sick.
But as far as you remember that guy? Hold on a second.
Oh, you mean the guy who took instead of doing a horizontal video, he did the vertical video and sold it to the network?
I'm a strong advocate for horizontal videos.
No, I'm sorry. Somebody was trying to call me. It was blocking you out there for a second. No, do you remember that guy locally here, former law enforcement officer? And he tried to put forth a program where, like, neighborhood watch groups would write down license plates of the drug dealers or drug activity, and then either scare them away with that or go to the police. And so this seems like this is an extension of that almost. But,
well, it is, except it's better because it's automated. It's 24/7, and you don't need to recruit volunteers in every neighborhood. Now, with the cameras that have already been placed in virtually every neighborhood, including Riverside Drive on the west side, even in the well-to-do neighborhoods, they now have plate readers. So even some of the best among us, are being carefully documented, and their information, their comings and goings, goes into the vast flock safety system wherever it is.
Yeah, even if they can catch a few of these drug dealers, I'm all for it.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's working, then we should see the illicit drug business in Binghamton and Broome County drop very rapidly. Personally, here's what I've noticed as a reporter when it comes to drugs and some other crimes. I haven't noticed any perceptible difference in the neighborhoods that have video cameras that have been in place now for several years, or the automated license plate readers. As a journalist who documents some of these things, I haven't noticed any apparent difference in the numbers of crimes in these neighborhoods, as well as in the percentage of cases that are closed. I don't know. Maybe correct, maybe there are statistics, but if they have, I think if they have statistics to prove how valuable these surveillance systems are, I think they should release the statistics. Show me.
Yeah, there might be some studies out there already.
Well, I'm sure there are studies, but they're confidential because of security reasons. I'm sure they study it. I'm sure they have numbers, but because of security reasons, they can't share them with the people who are paying for. We as taxpayers are paying for these systems to keep track of us. So, but I guess it's for a good cause, so nobody should ask any more questions. It's 11:44 at WNBF. Don't worry. Be happy with Binghamton Now. At 11:47, let's take some more calls. See if we can squeeze any more calls into our busy show. Paul in Owego, you're on the air.
Hey, Bob, good show. I'd like you to know I'm still in the town of Owego. I'm still alive and well. Sometimes I wonder if I give a flock, but, I've decided I'm not going to run. I'm not going to hide. I'm going to run for town board again. I got some news for these people in this town of Owego. They're getting more deceitful all the while. It's unbelievable.
So when are you going to run?
Oh, I ran before, Bob. I was within less than 100 votes of winning, and if I didn't run around getting everybody else to sign the petition, I probably would have been in, because my buddy had his dad in North Carolina that was with his dad. I went around and got him a lot of signatures, Bob, but we got some goofy things going on down there with the strawberry police. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we got new cops in town.
The strawberry police?
You didn't know about it?
What is it no longer legal to possess strawberries on Front Street?
Well, if you live near a strawberry, Bob, I'm telling you, like I do.
Yeah.
Okay, I was in the trauma unit at UMA. Boy, I tell you what, had this Russian doctor, did a bang-up job. I tell you what, I had 26 stitches in my arm. I was detained for 3 hours on the side of the road next to my house. I heard some people squawking about it, on the radio, but it's, thank God for the flockers in this world.
Well, all I can say is be careful, always be careful, and remember, any of the cameras, whether it's in Broome County or Tioga County, they're all there for your protection.
We love the camera. I'm a flocking supporter.
Okay, well, aren't we all? It turns out the flock safety company, they're expanding wildly. I think they have their cameras now in 40 or 42 states, and thousands, I think at least 4,000 communities have flock cameras and license plate readers. So they're close to complete coverage of the USA today. So they're doing well, and I predict over the next decade they're probably going to do even better. It's 11:50 at WNBF. Good morning, Matt from Binghamton, the former mayor of the Parlor City. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing? Maybe there'll be a TV show that they'll find the best camera that produces the most interesting content and just stream it and have a reality TV show. Anyway.
Well, no, but it's funny you should mention that, and you're saying it tongue-in-cheek. I've often thought that that is ultimately going to be a new division of Flock Safety, the entertainment division, and then some of their funniest and wackiest and more entertaining videos, they're going to put them on Sunday nights on ABC.
Well, we already had Bad Boys.
Yeah.
What you going to do?
Well, it would do well.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting. I know the Republicans are very giddy right now, and they think they're going to win this thing easily. What's very interesting is that the polling that just came out today, and I know I don't put a lot of stock, but after everything that's happened, you would think that Biden would go down in the polls, and he's actually improving. And that's where comes in J.D. Vance. He was possibly the worst choice. He's very smart. He's articulate. Smart, I use in quotes, because if you're smart and you're more extreme, one of the most extreme positions on abortion, that doesn't help your ticket. Of course, he's probably going to temper that, which they're all trying to do.
Well, Donald Trump has too. I mean, look at right. Donald Trump's record on that issue. If you go back decades ago, his record was about on the issue. His public position was very similar to yours back in the 80s.
Right, but the point is he said it's a great thing that it went to the states, and the states are the ones that are doing many of the states are doing these crazy draconian laws that won't even allow doctors to see women who are in extreme difficulty with their pregnancies until they get to such a place where they are almost dead or toxic. So that's the extreme position that J.D. Vance has also, and he's also the most pro-Putin senator in the Senate by far. So once that comes out, which he'll lie about that probably too. We know it's a party of liars. That's what they do, and they'll tell us one thing and do another. But people should be very cognizant of the fact that this is a little MAGA guy that's MAGA 2 on steroids, and he may speak well, he may be intelligent, he may come from many of these guys come from Ivy League colleges, but including Ted Cruz and the guy that ran through who ran through after giving the fist to the protesters on January 6th, who ran. They had a video. I forget what that guy's name is. That senator. But anyway, Hawley, whatever his name is.
Yeah. But I mean, the bottom line is it's great, in my opinion, it's great to see someone under 40 being picked as a vice presidential candidate and somebody who is currently sporting a beard.
Well, yeah, but don't forget, he's one of the reasons he was picked, and you see it happening today, is all of Silicon Valley, because he has those connections, going to give money to the campaign. This is all about money.
Well, of course, that's politics, especially at the national level. You can't run a successful presidential campaign without access to whatever, $1 billion now, probably more.
Well, that's because of Citizens United, which was passed by the Republicans, which the Democrats were opposed to. Yes, that's the world we live in. Doesn't mean that's the world we have to live in for the rest of our lives.
Well, I don't see it changing. First of all, you're not going to see the liberal media wanting it to change, because the liberal media, as well as the conservative media, benefit from the money in politics. Look at especially in the so-called swing states, if you live in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Florida, for the 3 or 4 weeks running up to the November election, your TV and your internet and even your radio will be filled with virtually nonstop commercials. That's necessary to keep what's left of the media going. We need the money. Well, laugh all you want. We need the money. More political commercials more often.
Hey, here's one more thing, one more anecdote. You know what? There was a big raffle at the RNC 2 days ago at the convention. You know what the prize was?
Yeah, a dog. They had the dog. I didn't have the sound cranked up, but they showed this guy talking, and then they cut away. Next to him, sitting on the chair, is the dog. So apparently, whoever entered the raffle was eligible for the dog, and a very cute dog.
No. Well, I don't know if they had 2 raffles, but their big raffle was the prize was an AR-15 rifle.
Oh, I saw that, too. And I thought, when I saw that, I immediately thought it must be fake, because who at the Republican National Convention would do something like that, given what transpired on Saturday? So I'm still not sure. That could have been a cruel hoax perpetrated by some kid on the Internet. It's 11:55. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bob from Boston.
Hey there.
I think you know what I'm going to say.
I have no idea. It's unscripted. What I like about this show, whether it's you or Matt from Binghamton or anyone else, it's totally unscripted. There's no way for me to predict what you might say next.
Every day it's the same bull. Okay, listen to me. Those plate things, flip the bird when you leave your house. That'll help.
I don't want to do that, because then they're going to find a reason to stop me. You should never make an obscene gesture to a public or private camera. It'll be used against you.
The government, I don't have to like them. I don't act like And another thing, do people really watch those crime shows like SUV or whatever it is? I hate those things.
Oh, Law and Order SUV. I love those things, and mainly it's because of Mariska.
I never watch those things. I can't believe people do.
They're ripped from the headlines. What the kid who runs a Law and Order SUV, he has an intern drive down to the newsstand and pick up a copy of the Daily News and a copy of the New York Post, and I tell you, those stories basically write themselves. They're ripped from the headlines.
A friend of mine used to watch them. What do you? You know they're going to solve the damn thing in 28 minutes.
I know. It's a formula, but it works. It works like a charm. Appreciate your call, Bob. That's all the time we have for today. I think we've learned a few things. But it also occurs to me, as we wrap up this 3-hour radio adventure, that there are additional things that really need to be taught. So the information flow will resume tomorrow between 9 and noon with Binghamton Now. In the meantime, I'm Bob Joseph. Thank you so much for listening, and I bid you a good afternoon from the WNBF studios.
Hi, I'm